All right, everyone. We're back with another great episode of the Santa Fe Gloom podcast. As always, would like to thank our sponsors who believe in our mission and vision of the Santa Fe Gloom. We've got the Botwin I Group, Oculus. We've got Mercedes-Benz of Santa Fe, Sam's Club, got Capital Ford, City of Santa Fe Economic Development, and for some reason we've got our Santa Fe logo up on top, covering the Pantry Dose logo. So sorry, Pantry Dose. I don't know how that happened, but we'll definitely make it up to you. Um, and to our great guest, Luke with Futsal News. Luke, you do so many things that we're obviously going to get into, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, Luke. One thing that I admire from you, Luke, and Jake, is you guys are essentially, for me, kind of like the pioneers of, futsal in terms of just your opinions, your contributions, your suggestions, all of those things. And I've got my puppy barking at me. Poor guy. Um, so we definitely thank you because if it's not for people like yourself and Jake who do this, we don't get further down the road and we don't push the needle for futsal. So
Yeah.
definitely want to compliment you on that. And you're a straight shooter as well. You don't hold much back. So I think that's also important too. That you're very straight, and I'm similar to that. Actually, believe it or not, I'm very straight on what I believe in, and we have passion for this, right? We
Yeah.
love the game of soccer. We love the game of futsal. So,
Yeah.
with that, Luke, just give us kind of how you gain that passion of futsal.
So, if you want to start way back, I played soccer my whole life. I was the kid playing rec league. Second grade. Going out with your Velcro shoes,
Hmm.
running around on the field. But I played my whole life. It was always something I really loved to do. Unfortunately, I got stuck as a goalkeeper at 5'8", so my career went nowhere. I didn't know anything, and you got to realize that if you can see from the gray hair, like I grew up in the '90s, and
Hmm.
not a lot of soccer was being watched in the U.S. Not a lot of soccer was known. You had coaches that were just like trying their very best, but they didn't know anything. But it was always still a passion that I loved soccer. Um, I stopped playing in high school after high school, but rekindled that passion back in my 30s um, when my best friend that lives in Portland, he was like, "Hey man, we're going to a Timbers game," and this was pre MLS, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "They're like a semi-pro team," and he was like, "Just trust me on this." He's like, "And when we do the cheers, like just do it. It's going to be great." And I went and I was just like, "What is this? This is amazing. It's so much fun." We harassed Casey Keller in the goal. It was very much, it was great. I mean, it was the coolest thing, and I fell in love again with soccer from I think a different standpoint, not yet playing.
Hmm.
When you're a kid, you're like, I'm going to go pro.
Right.
That's the thought. But as an adult, you're like, this is a fun sport. So I think it's just changed from there. I fell in love with the Timbers. Went to tons of Timbers games. Uh, Went through like was there at the very first MLS match. I was there at the very first MLS Cup.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. I just followed so hard. And then I can't remember how I came across it, but I think my best friend was like, "Hey, have you heard of this futsal thing they're doing?" I'm like, "What is futsal?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, there's this cool place called Rose City Futsal. They're opening up." And I was like, "What?" And so we kind of like I started down this road of like, this is a really really neat thing, and I kind of like just open the Pandora's box. You kind of peek in, you just like, what's in here, and I just went down the rabbit hole from there. Rose City, and I got the wild idea of starting futsal in my own town, and I opened a facility here in Idaho. Unfortunately, that was if you're familiar with soccer, it's a culture, and you got to walk delicately. And I don't walk delicately, so um, I think I offended a few soccer clubs. I don't know why, but that kind of like went away. COVID came. I'm glad I shut down before COVID. But then that led into streaming, which was me watching a Grand Rapids Olay game versus I think Jinga, and we watched on 11. Uh, I'm say I say because Jake was there too.
Hmm.
Um, and Rudy. I don't know if you guys know Rudy. I don't think if you know if you've ever met Rudy. He's actually he's out of commission for a little while with some sickness. But Jake, me, Rudy, we're all in the chat on 11, and we're like, this is just garbage because the stream was bad. And I just spoke up because what I did for the first 20 years of my life was video production. Um,
Okay.
I just said, hey man, if you guys need any help, just let me know. Like I would be down to help you guys. That's my forte. I love futsal. And I think like immediately they're like, yes, yes, please come help us. Um, and that's got me introduced to Grand Rapids Olay, who was playing in NFPL. I watched NFPL before that. I think in their like maiden year on Facebook, there's like Ann Arbor Mud Puppies and all these teams. Didn't quite know what was going on. I watched a little bit of it, now I got fully sucked into Grand Rapids, and they immediately were just like, "Yes, help us." Um, and so I kind of worked with them, and I developed this whole kind of off-site production technique. If you guys are nerds out there and you know what's going on, we used VDO.Ninja, basically a peer-to-peer service. I helped them understand like what they needed, how they needed it. I set up a full OBS production over here in Idaho with replays, graphics, intros, the whole 9 yards. So that kind of got me into NFPL. And then other people like Jake started coming up. Jake was always helping. Like I had the technical know-how, and take Jake just as a doer. I don't know if you guys know Jake. He's just a
Yep.
doer. So he was in here, and we developed the Discord server. Um, we just we developed futsal news. Jake was like, "Hey, I'm going to do futsal news," and I was like, "Cool, man. If you need anything, let me know." And he's like, "If like wingman me on things I need," and like because like sometimes it's hard to just sit there and yap, and I get
Yep.
that.
Yep.
So I kind of come in and I still want to do a couple stories on my own. Like I kind of want to be a reporter for him, but it's just with a full time job as well, it gets a little bit rough. But that's kind of a really rough shot of where I'm at now.
Was it what you expected when, because you're going from, the Timbers games, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is, I mean, that's one of the best MLS followings
yeah.
to futsal, and kind of alluding to now seeing the last championship game just a month ago. Where do you seen the progress within the futsal game in terms of streaming, in terms of advertisements, things like that?
It's rough, and I think I've always had like a real spot in my heart for like the thing that's not really cool, that not yet, but it is
Hmm.
cool.
Hmm.
Because like growing up in high school, like we played soccer, so we were the weirdos.
Hmm.
Um, and then we always hung out with the skateboarders, who were always like the weirdos, because it was weird because everyone knew the soccer guys and the skaters were hanging out, and
Right.
so like I've always had an affinity for this kind of like off brand, like whatever's like not quite there yet. Um,
And you feel that that's where futsal
I
is?
feel like that is futsal. Like
Yeah.
futsal is this kind of underground vibe to it.
Yeah.
It's not quite in the limelight. Um, and I think that's what attracts me to futsal. That being said, where it's at now, um, man, it's great. It feels really grassrootsy. It feels like
Mhm.
everything we do is pushing the envelope of, what can we do? Can we get better camera angles? Can we get better shots? Can we get better um score bugs? Can we do instant replays and all this stuff? So like the product of where it's at, I'm amazed. I
Yeah.
know it can be better because I see productions everywhere, but I love what we're doing as a community. I think that's kind of it. Is like I'm impressed with the community coming together and putting things together, and creating and seeing Grand Rapids Ole and the products they're developing in Grand Rapids, seeing Colorado and the products they're developing and their players at the championship game. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it is what I want, what I thought it would be, and so much more.
And futsal, because I'm new to futsal too.
Yeah.
Um, from my understanding, futsal is really originated and taken off in Latin American countries,
Yes.
in South America, Central
Mhm.
America. Uh, why do you think it hasn't taken off like it has in those countries in the United States?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's I mean, that's I in my opinion, that question can be answered with a bunch of opinions, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Uh, gee, I just see a lot of, the big 3. You got your baseball, your basketball, um, baseball, basketball, and football.
Yep.
Those are such dominant sports that I feel like, soccer is just now making its way into that realm. I think with MLS, I feel like they've done a great job. For whatever you think of MLS, whatever, I think, they are, making a lot of really good headway. I bought the Apple, season pass, and I'm so impressed with what's happening. You know, maybe Messi's not at his peak. Maybe all those players over on Miami aren't at their peak, but still they're doing great. I feel like there are young people, young players that are coming into the league. With all that being said, um, your baseball has been around since the dawn of the country. Your basketball is close, but it's been around forever. In America, has coined football, like gridiron football, as their own. So this, that would be like, why isn't American football, taken off in England? It
Yeah.
is, but like
Yeah.
it's still going to play second fiddle to football, real football. You know what I mean?
Soccer. Yeah.
I think that's part of it. I do think with the education of fans with soccer, and then being able to cross that line to watch futsal, they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it." But, people coming at futsal without any knowledge of soccer or anything like that, they're like, "What?" I still put on futsal wherever I go, and they're like, "What are you watching?" And I'm like, "It's it's indoor soccer, kinda." They're like, "Oh, it's indoor soccer." And I'm like, "Well, it's not really." But, you know
Yeah. Yeah. So another question would be, and again, obviously your opinion, MASL, Major Arena Soccer League,
Mhm,
arena soccer. It
mhm.
seems to me that's taken off,
Yeah,
but it's also got an older history, I would suspect, maybe
yeah,
60s, 70s,
yeah.
right? Um, but arena soccer seems to be more popular than futsal
Mhm.
in the United States at the moment.
Yeah,
And then kind of my opinion on it too is, however, in Europe, I don't think they're playing arena soccer. And the rest of the world's not
no,
playing arena soccer. So I think the
yeah,
soccer purists are looking at arena soccer and saying, "What the heck is that?"
yeah,
They're looking at futsal and they're saying, "Okay, we understand that much more." Right?
yes, yes.
So, I mean, what's your opinion there that in the United States, again, it's kind of backwards that arena soccer seems to be pulling ahead, maybe a little
Mhm.
bit further, and futsal is just kind of just trying to get its legs under them.
I think, again, it goes back to what America's comfortable with. You think about, where is indoor soccer being played? In hockey arenas or basketball arenas? Places that Americans understand
Okay.
and they know. Um, Indoor soccer is broken up into four quarters still.
Yes, it is.
So
Yeah.
they're having a lot of things, like they can throw the flag on the field.
Yep.
They're throwing in a. I'm gonna sound kind of jaded, but they're pandering to Americans instead of showcasing the sport for what it is. And that I've heard a lot of people say that, like my great grandmother who likes to watch football. She's like, because I always play soccer, and she's like, "This is stupid, and they never score." And I'm like, "Well, just pretend that when they score one, it's seven."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I love her to death, but she's like very old school. But the thing is like, I don't want to apologize for soccer because it's the beautiful game, and it's the
Right.
beautiful game for a reason. And I feel like the same thing with futsal. It's a beautiful game, and it is fine just the way it is. I don't think we need to put our American stamp on it. I think we need to just follow in the footsteps of MLS and just keep trudging away and making headway, because I feel like education and repeated education is the key towards making headway in these groups. As when I go out to these soccer tournaments, these youth soccer tournaments with my daughters, there's a culture out there, and they do love it. I think it's just gonna take someone doing it and doing it correctly with a lot of gusto and love, and someone that's in it for futsal and not in it for you know can I make the next $1 million, you know what I mean?
Right. And reflections on the United States and their last tournament and kind of just their strengths and weaknesses and just kind of your reflections there.
Yeah, that's tough. I think
And if you'd like to, I don't mean to break your train of
n-
thought.
no, no, no.
You can give us a little bit of history on how that team came about and the
Yeah.
ingredients and those players. Because from my understanding, is those players weren't the purest futsal players. They were somewhat recruited from the MASL, so they were arena soccer players,
Yeah.
right? And does
And
that make a difference, right? Can you step onto a 11v11 play on grass, go in the afternoon and go play arena soccer, and the next morning go and play futsal at a world stage? Is that possible?
Well, this comes back to the question of, when I say I'm watching futsal and people are like, "Oh, indoor soccer," I'm like, "No, not really," because
Right.
it's not. And the thing is I feel like this is where I will agree with Jake, because we do disagree on certain things, and he
Mhm.
likes that. But futsal is futsal, and I'll break this down to like even like my own experience. I'll give you a little anecdote here. I ran my futsal facility here in just little Idaho. And I had, you have the gym rats, the guys that show up every day and they play and they play and they love it, and you're like, dude, you don't have a life. Why are you here all the time? Um, but those guys were there, and like I knew these guys and they can play. Like they were not like pro, but they knew futsal. They knew what was going on. They're pretty darn good. Um, and then I had a crew of guys show up, and you could see them like they're rolling deep. They're like rolling up to the place, like, oh, we got our crew. We're gonna play. And it was a slow night, so it was just like my futsal guys versus a crew of guys that play
Okay.
indoor soccer.
Okay. Cool.
They tuned them up. I think we were up in like 25, 30 games without they didn't win once.
So
And I
you're saying the futsal guys won.
the futsal guys won.
Okay.
And just they like and I kind of like went up to the indoor guys. I'm like, "Hey guys, are you guys doing okay?" Cuz like they look frustrated and they're taking like these long shots and they're like I'm like, "Now futsal, you kind of want to like cross the ball and, attack the back post." And they didn't listen. And they just didn't understand. They would take these long shots, and the guys would just stand there and they'd watch them sky them, and they're just like, "All right, it's our turn now," you know. That little anecdote was like a perfect example of you can't come in with an indoor mentality to play futsal because futsal forces you to play on a set court space and control the ball, and it's like control is key. I think I had my three cornerstones of my futsal facility when I was training was I think um, control, create, compete. Like if you can control the ball, you can create. If you can create, then you can compete. It was my little,
Yeah.
acronym, whatever. But moving all of that to the conversation of the United States national team is here are the facts. You have Everton as the coach. He is the head coach of Utica City.
Which is a MASL one team, arena soccer, correct?
Yeah, they are an arena soccer
Yep.
mid table. Yeah, mid table, right? I'm pretty sure.
Correct. Yep.
Mid table on the better conference.
Yep.
That conference is better than I think it's the East Conference is better than the West. Um, and then he takes a assistant coach from a lower a lower table team from the worst conference. So they're pretty darn low. And
Also an arena soccer team.
also in arena soccer, the Outlaws. Was it the Outlaws?
That I don't know.
Okay, so the assistant coach was, I think it was the Texas Outlaws. And I look at the roster and he pulls Utica City players and Texas Outlaw players. So we're not even pulling the cream of the crop from arena soccer, which you would get your San Diego soccer players. You would get I'm not even sure who else.
Why do you think that was?
Honestly, I have some opinions. I can't really. I'll give you opinions, but let me keep building my case for
Sure.
what's going on.
Yep.
Um, and he pulls in one NFPL player, which was Robert Dammer. He pulled in 2 to 3 out of country players, which was Morati for a goalkeeper, and two others. I can't remember their names. Uh, anyway, two other players which had national team experience.
Mhm.
Um, one of the Texas Outlaw players showed well, in my opinion. The rest of them, they didn't have it. They stood around on the court and were wondering when the ball was going to bounce off the wall. I mean, it just it and it would to me it was a prime example of what I saw in my microcosm at my own facility expanded into the national team on a national level of indoor soccer players playing a futsal game, and it just didn't look good. They looked clueless. Um, the tactics weren't shifted. And I mean, I was a coach for like sixth graders, like I think seventh grade, and I mean barely anything for outdoor. And I know for a fact my girls could shift three formations on the fly based on tactics and what we needed to do. And to me, I'm like, if my little sixth grade girls can do that, like what's going on with the tactics of the national team? If you can't shift and adapt to what's happening, to me, like tactic shifting is always like mind boggling to me. If you don't shift tactics when you're losing, you're obviously what's the definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You know what I mean? And that's what I felt like they did. One game they showed pretty well, but again, it was never good enough, and they never adapted to the right tactics. It looked like a big pivot up top, and
Mhm.
hopefully they get the ball to him. And they didn't even have runners off of him. So all that to say is indoor tactics, lazy tactics in a very high paced game with a lot of transitional moments. I feel like in indoor, you don't need the transitional game as much. Like you can recover, but that transitional game is absolutely. I think that transitional game in futsal is faster in futsal. Like that transition from offense to defense happens in a split second, and if you're not on it and actually prepared while you're playing offense, you're gonna lose the transition game. And they did. They lost the transition game a lot.
And your opinion on why they picked more arena players than futsal players?
It's just like the real world. It's not about what you know; it's about who you know. That is true. I mean, if you've been in any job interview, gotten any job, it's not about whether or not you have a degree or you have years of experience. It's whether or no like I know David, so he's getting me the job at whatever. I've used it, I've done it, um,
Mhm.
and I think no one's gonna pick players that they don't know. I just don't think they're going to take those players with them because they're going to look across the way and say, you know, Utica City player, I need you to do this, and that's going to be a transition for them. But I think a smart coach would have taken futsal players because I directly after that game or the tournament at Concacaf, we immediately. I think it was a week or a couple weeks later, we watched the NFPL championship game. And I said to Jake in a direct DM, I was like, I'd take any of these guys. I would have taken just any of these players right here over all the players on the national futsal team. Easy. And I was like, they were so much more fun to watch. It
Mhm.
looked like they were playing futsal. I didn't have any room for someone that is going to take that banner of the national team coach and not do their homework because it really felt like he didn't do his homework. How do you not watch an NFPL game? We've streamed them all. I know because I did it.
Mhm.
How do you not watch game footage of these players? How did you miss on this league? And I get that on the whole the MASL probably has better talent, but at the same time that talent is geared towards. I think there's a few that I think they could make. You have to pick a really highly intelligent player to make that switch. Like you can say to them, like, "Hey, look, this is the tactic we're switching." You're probably, I mean, you've played, those
Mhm.
players that you're like, this person's like extra intelligent. They usually play like a 10 spot or like
Mhm.
right in the middle of the field, super brainy, super like vision, and you can tell them whatever and they just do it. And I think that's the type of player you need to pull from indoor to futsal and say, "Hey, listen, this is kind of what we're doing." And I feel like I think he got pieces like a big man, like big men, like God bless them, but like they're kind of one dimensional,
Mhm.
especially in a game like futsal. If you want to play like a pivot spot, that's what you're putting a guy in for, is playing pivot. And I feel like that's kind of who we recruited, were pieces instead of putting together futsalers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you know the preparation time they had in terms of picking the team, selecting the coach? Because for me, I feel like there's got to be some type of strategic model, right? That you're saying, hey, we're going to be looking at the National Futsal Premier League players,
Yeah.
right? And kind of put that into the schedule, saying when their season ends, they start training for the World Cup team or for those
Yeah.
qualifying games.
Yeah.
Can you tell our fans on just kind of that structure from what you know, from kind of a strategic model, or maybe we don't have one from US soccer on futsal? Because I feel
Well,
like we should.
you got to understand that U.S. soccer has pulled basically all funding from futsal. Everton, I mean, that's why I don't want to bust Everton's chops too much, because he's basically a volunteer. I
Mhm.
mean, he is a volunteer. He barely has enough money just to travel to places and do camps. But at the same time, I want to I wanted to make kind of go back and make a point as to,
Sure.
preparation, all that. Yeah, these guys didn't have a lot of time, and yeah, they probably, he picked people that played together, but at the same time, he didn't pick the cream of the crop, or from MASL. He didn't pick the cream of the crop from MSA. Or one thing that I've considered is, did they all flat out say no? MASL is way more important. And to me, in my mind, if you turn down a national team call up, that's a slight to the program. That's a slight to your nation. That says a lot about the program and whole. Like, could you imagine turning down a nod from the national team in outdoor? Like, it's unheard of. You wouldn't do it in any friendly. I mean, you would be honored, and you would get you would get there however you could. You know what I mean? To me, I wonder if, like, San Diego Soccer's players, because I know there's a lot of really good players there. They're doing, they're top of the league. If they said no, no, we're in the midst of playoffs. To me, like, no matter when it was, if I got a call up, I would just be like, I got to go do my duty. I have to. It's our nation, and we got to represent. And I don't know. There's a lot of things that's all pure speculation, and however it went, either he didn't pick the right people, or they said no to him, and then again he didn't pick the right people with not watching NFPL. You um, and then back to your question of like call up. Who knows how many trainings? I think he had like two trainings, like two camps. I don't know for sure. I don't quite know the number. Jake would probably know the better numbers on that. But as far as that goes, I mean, that's a rough gig, getting
Yeah.
people together, especially as
Yeah.
a new coach.
Yeah.
You're calling in people fresh. Like, say he did pick all NFPL players,
Yeah.
he still has to get together with them, build rapport, build a relationship, build tactics, and they have to trust him. And as a player, you have to trust your coach. If you don't trust your coach, it's going to be a individual uh, performance, a bunch of individuals on the court. I mean, that coach has to be the conductor, and my hat goes off to coaches that can do that, that can get people together and believe in one cause and get them to play for them and say, "This is what we're doing, guys. We're in," and like getting everybody in. That's a feat, especially with the egos involved in like sports. You know what I mean? So I give him a little bit of a break there, and I understand why he pulled people he knows, because it's hard to get people under one banner. But at the same time, like, I would at least shoot my shot with futsal players, not indoor players.
Yeah. Yeah. You've definitely educated me on a lot of things, because I was reading the comments during, or I think when you mentioned that too, Jake, that it was during the national championship game,
Yeah.
that you would have picked many of those players who were playing in that championship game to represent the United States. So that also got me thinking from a local level with the Gloom
Yeah.
that some of our players could one day,
Oh, easily.
play for the US national futsal team, right?
Easily.
So
Easily.
that's amazing. So now I'm thinking strategically on the dates we're playing, right? When the National Futsal Premier League starts and ends, in
Mhm.
preparation to groom those players to then step onto a national team roster. So I feel like that's how naturally it needs to go. And then that's, for lack of a better word, that's the carrot, right? But if you're
Yeah.
a 22-year-old player coming back from, or yeah, 23, done with
Mm.
school, you go back to your local city, to Santa Fe, and you're like, yeah, I do want to play for the U.S. national team. What is the path? What's the schedule look like?
See that, and that's you've run into another huge problem. Like you're hitting all the landmines because okay, so back up just real quick and then we'll go
Hmm.
forward.
Sure.
Um to talk about the players that they did not pick. Gabe Villagomez. That's I mean, you can just start in the conversation right there. Gabe Villagomez is on a full ride scholarship to Michigan.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah,
Yeah.
unbelievable player.
Yeah.
Real
And
deal.
he didn't even get a shout. Didn't even get an invitation to camp. I mean, at least look at him. That's a game-changing player right there. He could have like made the difference for the US futsal team. Not even not even called up into camp.
Right. And so my question is again, is that due to scheduling? Is that due to
Well,
collegiate protocol? Do they break that protocol?
this
Because if
this
we're not getting those players in,
this starts and ends with Everton.
okay,
I mean,
got it.
it is, and it's as the head coach, you have your prerogative of players you want. That's your job as the coach is to understand your player pool, and everybody underneath you is helping you understand that player pool. Because if you don't understand your player pool, you know what I mean? Like I see some national coaches that dug up some gyms, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they dug up and hats off to uh the why am I losing his name right now? The coach before um give me his name.
You're talking
The
about
co-
the last futsal coach?
yes, hold on.
We could
Now
probably
I'm gonna
Google it. Yeah, we can
yeah.
Google it.
Uh I want to at least say his name. Hold on one
Yeah.
second. Da, 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 da. Anyway, whatever. I'm losing his name right now, but he dug up Moriera, the goalkeeper. I don't know if I'm
Hmm.
pronouncing his name right, but
Hmm.
he found him in Italy. He wasn't even playing futsal. I don't think. I think he was just hanging out, and he went and found him. Um, that kind of initiative to find your player pool. I think he's an Italian. He lives in Italy. He has the dual citizenship. But that kind of digging and hats off to someone like Jurgen Klinsmann who did that as well and found some very talented players for the soccer team. I think that kind of commitment to finding your player pool is kind of what you need. And yes, Everton does not have resources. He doesn't. But um, you know, the the coach before him, why am I missing his name? I am sorry. I have like brain
You got
fog.
Google it.
I'll find it out in a second.
Yeah.
But he did his homework. He's very passionate about everything. I don't want to get into like the ins and outs of like why he's gone, but it's a shame. It's a shame. So moving forward, you're talking about windows and pathways. That's assuming that there is a window and there is a pathway. I mean, futsal is an extended national team. We're in the same categorization, and no slight to them, but like with the Paralympics, the para soccer, we're beach soccer. Um, I think there's a couple more that I'm missing. Um, but anyways, and there's no slight to it. But at the same time, if we're really going to make a serious go at a national competition, we got to be taken a little bit more seriously than um, beach, like just kind of like playing a beach game or whatever. To me, it just needs to be taken seriously. It's a national a sport with national clubs like Barcelona, you know, um, Anderlecht, you know, and big teams coming in and big clubs putting a lot of money in this, and that I think it's a missed opportunity for the US really to get an edge in on a sport that I think would develop our country and our status in soccer easily in short order. But I just think that the organization needs to be there, and we can. And when we're pulling funding from futsal, and jerking the coaches around, we're getting nowhere. We're talking about windows, they're non-existent. Talking about pathways, we have U.S. futsal or U.S. youth futsal, and they're doing a fantastic job. But I mean, another anecdote, Jake's receiving emails um, from players that want to move on, but they're being told that like this is the end of the road. 16 years old, you're done, and they say go play MASL. And to me, like how how are we putting our stamp on U.S. youth futsal and hurrah hurrah and doing the big cheer when the commissioner of the MASL is the spokesperson for US Youth Futsal. And he's the one telling people and pointing over to MASL. We can't do that. Like that's like a conflict in interest. And I think as a community playing futsal, that's just we're shooting ourselves in the foot, you know. And this kid told him, you know, I'm going to go play with Anderlecht. He had connections. He traveled over there with US Youth Futsal, and you know, the person that's supposed to be the biggest fan of futsal looked at him dead in the face and said, "Huh." You know what I mean? Like a kid making his dreams come true, and you give him no excitement. He came through your program. To me, there's something dreadfully wrong, and I could go into a lot of detail and backroom talk, but like that's all just going to fuel like fighting. But at the same time, I'm trying to point out like the basic wrong, which is we have no pathway from about 16 to 25 where your golden window for someone to play for the national futsal team. There's nowhere for them to be in the US. There's nowhere for them to be. NFPL is a great league, but it's amateur. It's amateur, and it needs to be and I think we've had this discussion before about it is it a top league or is it the top in the US? So there's a difference between it being a top league and the best we have in the US. Do you know what I mean? I think Jake made that point with some other people having this argument, and this is a very passionate argument, but I think we need to step up, and I don't know how, and I
Mhm.
think Jake and I have been like literally beating the drum saying anybody, we want you. We need your help. We want you with us. We want you to be a part of the solution. Come out, talk with us, join the discussion. We want to make a top league in US.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, my reflections is that there's opportunity,
Yeah,
mega
oh yeah,
opportunity, because
there is.
some people may say there's no pathways, but now it's our job to create those.
Yeah, and there's opportunity. It's there. Um, the one thing I really like about futsal, and I've always liked about soccer, is that multicultural vibe. Like when you step onto a futsal court, it doesn't matter if you speak English,
Oh yeah,
Chinese,
yeah.
Hindi, you know, Spanish. You all jump in and you're on the same vibe. And you don't even need language anymore. It's a universal language. It's what got me hooked on skateboarding. Is you can show up to a skate park, nobody knows. Like everyone could speak different languages, and you all get excited for someone. You know what I mean? If they landed a trick, everyone's excited. You score a goal, everyone's excited. You know what I mean? It's that vibe and that kind of camaraderie, and I think that will be that's one thing that's really vibrant about the soccer community as well, is you see all the flags in the stands. Like someone's like, hey, I'm Guatemalan, and I know that guy from my hometown, and he's playing in the US now. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And people are flying the Guatemalan flag. Jake and I just had people in chat when we are watching the CONCACAF tournament, and they were Peruvian. No, not Peruvian. Wait, they were Guatemalans because Guatemala was in there. There's some people from Puerto Rico, but it was just so cool to see people like really supporting their nation and just getting down on futsal together. Like we're just having conversations with them. So I think that right there is a really big key to the opportunity of futsal. You know, you're not just a U.S. market; you're a world market.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Gloom is a good example of that too. We've got Guatemala, Mexico,
Hmm.
Honduras, Chile,
Yeah,
Brazil. So that's 5 countries. Venezuela, 6. Obviously, the United States, 7.
yeah,
All for the Gloom,
yeah.
right?
It's
So
great.
it don't matter what language you speak or anything. Can you play or not?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Can you play or
Can
not?
you pass the ball to me or not? Yeah.
That's 100% it.
Yeah. So and that's why it's called the beautiful game, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
mean, all things considered.
yes.
Uh, Women's futsal.
Women's futsal. So I have an opinion. I've expressed this with Jake before too. Is the current kind of opinion on the street. So this is kind of just hearsay, and is that we probably for soccer could field two women's national teams and take first and second. I think that's where we sit
Yep.
as far as women's talent in the US. I love watching the women's game. Um, so you got a big fan here with me already. I think women's games are highly untapped. I think they're highly competitive, and I think a lot of people kind of will automatically say, "Oh, poo poo this" or whatever. But I mean, you look at the Thorns, have a vibrant community. Um, you look at if you have a chance and you go back through the NFPL archives, we had a women's league for 1 year,
Hmm.
and we had a game. The game, if you look back at the games, the women's games of Grand Rapids Ole versus Futsal Factory, those were some of the most entertaining games of that season that I watched. Uh, we had, oh, give me her name. I'm spacing names right now. The girl, she played 1 year and she signed for the NWSL, NWS, is that right?
Yep.
National Women's Soccer League.
Yep.
Um, as the youngest player ever to sign a contract. It was funny because she had the title for I think like 2 months, and then someone's younger signed. I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. I think her name was Chloe. Man, I spaced Ricketts. Chloe Ricketts.
Okay.
Played for Futsal Factory. Just absolutely, you could just see her like glowing on this other level on the court, and you're just like, look at this player. You know what I mean? Chloe Kelly on Grand Rapids Olay. You had I don't know. There's just a slew of them. Uh, the sisters, the Grimaldo sisters for Futsal Factory, or I can't which one. I can't remember which one they played for, but they both played for the Mexican national team. Just talent out the wazoo. Super fun to watch. Um, I'm a little bit bummed that they came and went from NFPL in just a season. Um, I think that's just I don't know what it is. It's just one of those things where you have to like kind of like coddle it and grow it very gently and stick with it to grow it. But I feel like it was just kind of like one of these things that was kind of we have a women's team, you have a women's team, let's go. You know what I mean? Instead of like, hey, let's grow this sport. Like, what can we do to grow the women's game? So again, going into this futsal thing for the right reasons, for the love of futsal, not for the love of what can we make. How much money can we make doing this?
If you gave us suggestions on how to do a Santa Fe Gloom women's team, what would you do here in our market?
I see what Santa Fe Gloom is doing with their men's team, and you have the right idea. You know what I mean, with building your team, creating that culture, with the players you select. I can tell, like I can assume the thought process of who you're pulling in, and the kind of the personalities you're pulling in, the depth of people you're pulling in. I would do the same thing with the women's team, but the one caveat I would suggest is making sure you spread that knowledge and help and wealth of knowledge to other teams. To because the thing is if you have a Santa Fe Gloom team, that's all great, but if you have no one to play, you don't have a league. You don't have. I mean, you don't have anything. And I think that's one thing where I've had multiple talks with Juan of Grand Rapids Ole, who's their kind of manager, and I say, listen, I love what you do for Grand Rapids Ole. You should consider helping other teams because it's just going to make Grand Rapids Ole look better. It's just going to be better for you, better for Ole. If Cadence is a better team, if Indy is a better team, if Columbus is a better team, if Futsal Factory is a better team, and I said, like that, good competition means better for you, and you're just going to look that much better. You know what I mean? So that's the one thing I would say is, if you want to build a women's league, build the women's league all together. Like, you're gonna have to like help other people, like new flagship develop their
Mhm,
team,
mhm.
Colorado develop their team, and Barusa develop their team because in the end it helps you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we're in the developing stages of that.
Hmm.
We've got the talent pool, but that's exactly right. We're thinking, well, who do we play?
Hmm.
Right. So
Yeah.
those are the things we're thinking about. But from like a marketing level, I think it's an absolute,
Hmm.
an equity level, obviously, and people have been asking for it.
Yeah.
So, I'm a
Women's
little
game is good.
surprised just that the women's league, the first year kind of didn't do the second season. I'm a little surprised of that.
Hmm.
Um, but it is difficult to make the financial sense sometimes as well.
Right.
But I think it's probably just starting really, really slow.
Yeah.
We can gather a group of the best ladies here in Santa Fe
Yeah.
and play against Albuquerque and do that a couple times and start
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Right? And then gather a group, like you mentioned, in Colorado and start there.
Hmm.
So I think it's baby steps,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
just like the entire, National Futsal League is. It's still baby steps.
Hmm.
I think it's only 4 or 5 years old, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that's definitely something we will definitely have this year, and we'll play against probably a group of ladies in Albuquerque.
Yeah. That's
So,
great. I
yeah.
love those games. I've always have, and like I said, they were some of the most entertaining games I watched.
And we've kind of touched on it, but the future of futsal in the United States, where do you see it going the next 5 to 10 years? What's it going to take, and particularly within our league, the National Futsal Premier League? What do you think needs to happen? Last year, from my understanding, well, I guess now 2 years ago, there was maybe like 12 teams, and then it got kind of cut in half.
Mhm.
Um, that's not a good sign,
No.
right?
No.
So the sustainability of the league needs to be there. We're in 8 teams right now. We've got 4 in the West and 4 in the Midwest, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I feel like what happens if one of the teams doesn't join next year? Then we have
Mhm.
3 teams,
Yeah.
and it's like I don't know, like how does all that pan out? What's your prediction? What would you like to be seen done better? Um,
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of different ways this could go. Well, my auto tracking is going crazy. Um, I see, I think 3 paths,
okay,
3 or 4. Um, I mean, we'll start with the golden child, which is, Mark Cuban comes in and says he likes what he sees and drops a dime, and he makes just you there's not a lot money can't, pave, you know what I mean? I think money can do a lot. Does that help the success of the league? It depends. I think PFL ran into that with Tozer and Cuban, who tried to do it. I think they had all the right intentions, but I think you get these political kind of battles going on, and everyone wants it their way. And from what I've heard, there was a certain party that stepped in and just said, no, 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 I'm the man. And then it kind of, everyone jumped because there was someone who wanted to seize control instead of, again, I say this a lot, do it for futsal, don't do it for money. Do it for futsal. Do it, and like I heard a really really great quote, and I still want to remember who it is, but they said, don't worry about money, make something cool and not and like really exciting, and the money will come. Don't
Yeah.
worry about that. The money will follow something that's great. Um, so the Mark Cuban route, the financial infusion could really do something as long as um, someone's at the helm that really understands how to do it, and why to do it. That could be a way. I see that being a really fast rise with either a super fall or like a into atmosphere like trajectory. But I also see ways like developing something along the lines of Kings League with I think who's the ex Barcelona guy doing that? Is it Xavi? I think he's doing Kings League, like seven aside over
Hmm.
in Spain.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, like it's a total, and I've really believed in this, is a total organic streaming based sport. It's all free. It's all on social media. It's on Twitch and YouTube, and it's fan driven. It's so fan driven. Like they just have like really great streamers streaming all the games. And I see that happening, like taking control of social media and just doing it. And like, I honestly see sports going that way, period. I see sports streaming. I see sports with chat interaction.
Yeah.
I see sports um, with more than one screen, with real time stats happening and fans interacting with that. Possibly on like a betting level, like you could like even bet. I know that Twitch already has like funny points, like just like you watch a channel and you get points to spend and you can gamble them actually in polls and stuff. I see a lot of that stuff happening because I think Twitch is a great interaction. You can give money and things happen. You can make things pop up on the screen. I just see the next generation of viewers liking that interaction a little bit more than just kind of plopping on the couch watching the game. Nothing wrong with that because it also has that feature. But I see that kind of a way forward is teams taking a super deep dive into social media and how they can project who they are and getting interest that way.
Hmm.
Um, and the other route I see is if we don't start taking futsal seriously, it's just going to die. I see a lot
And
of passionate.
who's we when you say that? Yeah. Who's we?
Um, the futsal community at large, I
Okay.
would say. I see Jake and I doing stuff, to try and spark a little bit of like passion and love with what we're good are good at. I see David and Santa Fe passionate, you know, driving the game forward. I see people like Otto Orff. Jake tells me, I don't know him personally, but Jake tells me
Mhm.
a lot about what he's doing. Very passionate with heart and soul. I see, and there's probably gobs more of people that are very passionate about futsal, driving the thing forward. But how do we, as a community, um, place that next step in the path that we've been talking about? That's at 16 to 25. How do we place that in place to where we can actually have, birth to death, maybe not death, but like, the end of your soccer career pathway for futsal? I think we're missing that 16 to 25, which is where we're living in this kind of futsal league. I think we could organically grow it, but it's going to take a lot of us coming together and putting forth our talents and passion, and again, doing it for futsal, not for getting rich. I
Yeah.
think, if I was today to be asked like, "Hey Luke, thanks for all you did for futsal, we got it from here," I would say, and they say, we're gonna invest in pro teams, we got like sponsors, people are going to get paid to play, I'd be like, there you go.
Right.
It's not a problem for me. I don't. I've had my day.
Yeah.
I do this because I love futsal. I do it because it's fun. I would always want to be involved somehow, but I don't want to be in the way of it growing. And I think a lot of people really want to have their hands on the steering wheel. You know what I mean? Even if they don't know what they're doing, they really want to have their hands on the steering wheel. And to me, that's never been a big deal. I'm
Mhm.
always like, out in the back behind the car, like picking up trash or like, doing what needs to be done to like make sure we go forward. Um, I think that type of attitude, there just needs to be people coming together. And I just saw a TikTok of I've had these like business kind of TED Talk guys come on, and this gentleman was on there talking about creating things. Like if you're out there working hard and giving of your time, it's actually not as great as, you know, creating something really quality with your mind, or you know what I mean, like using higher end functioning. And so that kind of spoke to me as to futsal is in the teams, and like you said, teams are falling off. We don't need more teams. We don't need to muscle this. We need to create Glooms.
Yeah.
We need to create Barusas. It doesn't matter if we have tons of them. We need to do them right. And I think once they're done correctly, I think those things will grow. And if they see the sustainable model, I think other people will be able to identify that and grow instead of these like fly by nights. And no disrespect, no disrespect to anybody, playing futsal or creating a league or wanting to do that. I just think, like you said, how do we move forward? That is the way forward. Is getting people that say, I have a 5-year plan. Here it is. Not someone that says, hey, I have a team for this season. You know what I mean? You see the difference? Like someone that's like gearing up for the long haul. I think we just need more of those coming in. And I think um, we don't need a ton, but we definitely have to have some to play. But I think that's the key is teams that are like in 5-year planning periods rather than season planning periods.
Yeah, when I did my research for futsal, I looked at Colorado, Brusa, and obviously Albuquerque because that's our neighbor. But especially Brusa and Colorado, they've got it down.
Yeah.
They live and breathe this stuff. They do it full time,
Yeah.
24/7, 365. They've got the youth clubs that
Yeah.
are filtering into the pro team. And I said, perfect.
Yeah.
Even if the league, and I've said this many times, I've said this to Ducks, even if the league gets bought by Mark Cuban or whoever, and the Gloom's
Yeah.
not a part of it, most likely I'm still going to have Denver and Phoenix and Albuquerque nearby as my neighbors who are doing the right things.
Mhm.
So, I
Mhm.
mean that's an excellent point, and that's the way I see it. Is I'm following, Bruce's track record and Colorado's track record, and keeping the relationship tight in Albuquerque because that's our player pool and that's
Right.
our neighbor. That's an
Right.
alliance because we don't have to travel far and we're right there. So we're holding those good relationships between us four. We create a really good Western conference, and
Right.
now we slowly get another fifth or sixth team. But I think you're right. I've seen that also in the MASL. They'll just pick up kind of a random team and they'll fall off in a couple years,
Mhm.
and the runners are still there in Albuquerque, Wichita's still there, Amarillo's still there, and those are kind of like the stakeholder teams.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with that opinion. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
um, Luke, thanks, thanks,
Yeah.
man. You kept
Yeah,
me
no
on my
problem.
toes. We're definitely gonna do this again for sure.
Cool.
Um, I don't. I think we've covered a lot. I think we've set the table for more discussion. Uh, I mean, thanks to you and Jake, I've been buried into futsal the last like 8 months of my life. I've been just totally buried in it, trying to catch up to you guys on the ins and outs. And how do we create that path? I mean, that's my
Mhm.
next step is
Yeah.
how do we get a U8 futsal player, you know, to say, I can play for the US national futsal team.
Yeah.
This is the path, this is the schedule. I play club, etc., high school, college, come back to my hometown and play for that team because I think that's the goal. It should be
Yeah.
the goal.
Yeah.
And I'm learning how to create that for our city here in Santa Fe.
Yeah. Well, just kind of a final thought. Like, if you are listening to this podcast and you say, "I love futsal. What can I do?" Don't reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out to me. Reach out to David. Reach out to Jake. Reach out to someone. We want you. Like, we need you.
Yeah.
So like Jake and I have been doing this a lot. Like, this is a call. Like, if you're into futsal and you want to see it grow, now's the time. It's the time to step up. Whatever you have to give is needed. Whatever that is. Like, you could be good at books. Like, you could be good at, I don't know what you could be good at making food. I don't know. Like, we need it all. And if we have all hands on deck, I think we could really, really make some noise. I just think a lot of people sit in the shadows saying, "What can I do?" Like as in like kind of this meek little voice, like, "What can I offer?" I'm just me. That's not true, because it's all I did was I yapped in a chat and I said, "Hey, I can help," and and I did, and I helped. And I think, there's a lot more people like that. So don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to help out. We want you. We need you. We need more passionate soldiers to jump in the futsal family.
Yeah. I second that. I mean, I was the same way. I reached out to you guys and we just built that friendship because we have something in common that we want to
Yeah,
see this game grow.
yeah,
Because we see what it does to communities.
hmm,
Our community, we love the Gloom.
yeah,
It's unbelievable, and we love that intimate setting of watching a futsal game
right,
in like a local high school gym, right? That is historically it's basketball.
yeah,
But now people are going to say, well, we use Santa Fe High School for boys and girls basketball, volleyball, and we also host the Gloom games.
yes,
Like that really sparks a community. It's a different demographic that are going in to sharing community space.
right,
So it really these types of conversations and these types of ideas that you're saying bring more to this is the outcome. The Santa Fe Gloom is a perfect outcome to that.
yeah,
And I give credit to you and Jake for helping me through that path and through that course throughout the entire league or throughout the entire season, just
yeah,
giving us those little nuggets of
yeah,
saying, "Hey, Dave, do it this way, stream it this way, do that," and that's what makes it that much better for the next production, the next year to recruit those people.
yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
would like, and Brusa and Albuquerque and Colorado, we're following in their footsteps because we're kind of the new guy on the block, you
Hmm.
know. So we wanted to pull our weight as best as we could. But you're exactly right, man. It's just the more the merrier,
Yes,
and there's just so much damn opportunity because it's
yes,
not tapped. I mean,
no,
for a Gloom player to be like, you know what, this crazy guy, Luke is saying you can play for the U.S. national team. That just energizes me. Like I'm
right,
so now motivated to start talking to our players and say, "Hey guys, let's start training. Let's getting out there because you can wear that badge someday at the
yeah,
highest level." And they're gonna
yeah,
say, "What city you're representing?" And you're representing, Santa Fe, et cetera, et cetera.
right,
And
right,
that's huge. And then we're winning those World Cups now.
yeah,
Now now it's there. So
yeah,
I think it's definitely gonna get there. It's gonna take a lot of sweat equity,
yes,
but conversations like this and straight shooters like you,
mhm,
will help us get there. So,
for sure.
cool. Thanks, Luke. We'll do this
Yeah,
again. We need to bring in Jake too.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
we'll put him on, and we'll just continue to discuss this,
Yeah,
but I'm super enthusiastic of the future of the Santa Fe Gloom, your podcast with Futsal News. You guys cover so much ground internationally, local level, and it's only gonna get better.
for sure, for
So,
sure.
thanks, man. Appreciate
Cool.
it. We'll
Thanks,
pass it
David.
on. Thanks, Luke.
All right.